Welcome back to another amazing episode of Plan Your Federal Retirement Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Shalansky, and with me today is not a stranger to the podcast. We have a great advisor coming out to us from Washington, Christian Sakamoto. Christian, how's it going, bud?
Micah, I'm doing well, and Happy New Year to you. It's great to be back on the podcast, and there's been a lot of changes. So I know there's, especially with the Secure Act 2.0 coming out, there's just a lot of cool things for us advisors to be really staying on top of to give you guys the best advice. So I'm super excited for this episode.
So, Christian, it was really funny. Now, to our listeners, they're like, all right, Christian just said, is really fun and exciting. What part of this is fun and exciting? But right before Christmas, we had a little, get together at our house and whatnot, and Congress was just getting ready to pass this omnibus bill and with Secure Act 2.0. And I told someone, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to read it this next week. They said, what do you mean you're going to read it this next week? I was like, well, this directly affects my clients, and I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to read the actual legislation, and we're going to go through it and find out how it works for our clients. And I got this big smile on my face. And he's like, why are you smiling? I was like, because this is fun. He's like, no, Micah. You have a very poor definition of fun. No part of this is fun. And okay, reading what Congress does, sure, that may not be the most exciting thing, but the impact that makes to us as individuals and knowing what these rules are and also understanding what we don't know right now, because even though Secure Act passed, even though Congress passes a law, we're going to talk about one thing in just a minute, that doesn't mean we actually know what's going to happen. Because sometimes Congress passes laws with a little bit of ambiguity, and the CPA industry, the financial planning industry says, okay, we think it means this, and 2 years later, the IRS comes back and says, actually, it means something else. So it's a little bit of guesswork that's going to be there, a little bit of art kind of in this, and I love walking through that with clients. I love being able to chat about this and kind of help clients understand these things so they can better plan their retirement.
Yeah, 100% agree. So stay tuned. There's going to be more as we go on and read these rules and go through them, that we'll be doing some more episodes related to this and more. So stay tuned for those.
Fantastic. Well, Christian, one of the things I want to bring up kind of early in the pod as well is we have a bit of an ambitious goal, and I don't have a time frame on this one, but listeners, I need your help. We have a goal to help 1 million federal employees plan their retirement. 1 million federal employees plan their retirement, and that is a pretty audacious goal, if I do say so myself, but we can see the impact of when you positively plan for retirement versus not, and we really want to get out there. We really want to get the message across to help more and more people. This is not a sales pitch. There's no close that's coming at the end of this. This is something that we are very passionate about and want to do, and we need your help with that. We're going to do our best to create lots of great content this year. We have a whole new content calendar. We're going to come at you with some great information, which is fantastic. And I need your help to share it. We need your help to push this information out, to get it to people that might know it so they can help plan their retirement. Yes, it's a little selfish because I want to help with our goal of hitting that 1 million federal employees planning their retirement, but this is about helping federal employees understand the great benefits that they have. So not only is the podcast coming at you, again, another fantastic year, but we have some really great courses. We have some great content with some one-pagers that we're going to be coming up, better understanding your benefits so you can apply it. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Christian, I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, a couple things. So I really want to get into, Christian, in this New Year's, it kicks off, is cash flow. Cash flow, we said this again and again, cash flow is the heartbeat of retirement. This is so important that we can talk about, and there's several things that we can apply to it. I do want to hit one thing real quick on some rules that changed. This wasn't Secure Act 2.0, which passed in that Christmas time, but before that, the IRS did make a clarification on some ambiguity that was in Secure Act 1.0, which talks about RMDs, required minimum distribution on inherited accounts. So if you inherited an IRA account from someone in the last 3 years after 2019, you need to make sure you're talking with your financial advisor because the rules have changed. And if you do the same thing you did last year, you're going to run into a problem. The rules have changed on those accounts. It's a little too complex to get into because it wasn't quite our topic for today, but a little bit of a warning sign out there. If you have an inherited account, talk to your CPA. Make sure they're up to speed on the new changes that came out in November, December for Secure Act 1.0 and 2.0 because those two overlap. One doesn't overwrite the other, and make sure you understand that. So I know it's a bit vague, but if that happens to fit into your category, make sure you're talking to somebody that understands that. All right, Christian, let's jump in and let's kind of talk about some cash flow. I know one of the things I love talking about this in January, especially because didn't federal employees get a pay raise this year?
Yeah, I heard something about that. It's actually 4.1% across the board, which is just outstanding, and it's a very significant increase. There also was a 0.5% increase on locality. So just right there is a 4.6%, and that doesn't factor in, any potential promotions or any other locality adjustments there. So yeah, quite the pay raise into this 2023 year.
Now, the reason we bring that up is can I have a general rule, and we're going to talk about this more in detail. Whenever I'm working with a client, and Christian, I know you like to do the same thing, is I got a pretty simple 50-50 rule. It says any new money that we received, any unexpected money, right? We live in Alaska, so this could be permanent fund dividends coming in. This could be a pay raise. This could be a step increase, anything like that. I love to apply 50-50. 50% of that pay raise goes to the future. Increase that TSP, increase that catch up, max fund that Roth IRA, right? Whatever those numbers are, put more money to the future with half of that money. Then the other 50%, let it come to the bottom line. It's okay to increase your living a little bit. It's okay to increase your lifestyle a little bit as long as we're applying this 50-50 rule. Where people get in trouble is they put 100% of the pay raise right in their pocket, and then their lifestyle immediately goes up. Christian, I don't know about you, but in me, if money goes in my checking account, it goes out of my checking account, right?
Yep.
I am pretty good at spending that money that goes in there. And so if that continues to happen and my pay goes up and up and up and up, and I'm spending more and more and more and more and more, and I'm not saving more and more and more, you create a wedge, you create a gap that's not in a good way because you're not really on track to replace that income when you retire.
100% agree. And that's what we want to encourage you as we move into this new year, as we're starting to see those increases, is think about that 50-50 rule. Think about being able to continuously increase how much we're saving and putting away, but then also spend some of it. So let's say, make $100,000, and just for easy math, your increase was $4,000 this year. Great, put two more thousand into the TSP and spend that $2,000 over this year. I think that's a very easy concept, and again, it's going to help with that continuous increases in pay, continuous increases in spending. We just want to avoid being in a position where you get down the road and you regret not having saved enough for your retirement. We don't want that.
Yeah, amen. Now, one of the areas I think this can come in, I'm going to call it a mistake, Christian, a mistake that pre-retirees run into all of the time. At least this is what I see. So let me know if you see something different. Is there's a misconception, and that misconception is that when I retire, I will spend less. When I retire, my taxes will be less, right? We've been told that for so long, and I think that is just inaccurate. It's almost like an anti-truth, right? It is the exact opposite of really what we see working with people one-on-one. And here's a simple example. Let's say you have a traditional work schedule that's Monday through Friday. When do you spend more money? Monday through Friday? Or Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the weekends?
I'd say Friday through Sunday. Personally.
Yeah, on the weekend when we're out doing things, right? What
Yeah.
happens when every day's a weekend?
Good point.
Where are we going to be spending money, right? We've created a lifestyle. You've created a life. Now, it's possible. You can change it. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying on average, what do we see? Sure. On average, what do we see is people want to spend the same amount of money in retirement that they have coming in now. We're creatures of habit. I'm used to X dollars hitting my checking account every month, and I spend X amount of money. Federal employees, right? You do it every 2 weeks. Fantastic. You just get that money coming in, and you spend it. We got to keep on that same track. So I would say this is the big mistake that retirees, especially younger retirees, get into, is that it'll cost me less in retirement. Therefore, I don't need to save as much today.
Yeah, and I don't see that. We don't see that working with our clients, and that's one of the things we're coaching as we're working with individual clients and their situations, is saying, okay, great, you're a few years away from retirement, maybe 10 years away. It's really unrealistic to think we'll be spending less into retirement. There might be a few exceptions, and I know right before the podcast we were chatting about one of those exceptions being, let's say my mortgage is going to be paid off by the time I retire, or maybe a few years after retirement. And that's a really good example of potentially spending less into retirement. But we have to have a plan with that. And the first question is, taking this example, is with the mortgage, is saying, is this going to be our forever home or not? right?
Yep.
Is this a home that we're going to see ourselves living in a retirement, or are we already planning on moving and downsizing, or moving somewhere a different location? Now, I'm not talking about going into a nursing home, right? Or moving into a home like that. I'm just mentioning, is this the house that we see ourselves in? Now, if the answer to that is yes, great. Now we can look at what is the actual principal, interest, taxes, and insurance that we're paying for our monthly mortgage payment. And that's where we have to separate out those parts and take out and essentially look at it from where are all those dollars going. Principal and interest may go away, but we're still going to have taxes that we're going to have to owe, property taxes. We're still going to have insurance. So we have to look at it from that perspective. And so, let's say your mortgage is, or say your monthly payment is $2,500 a month. And let's say your principal and interest are $2,000 a month, and then $500 for taxes and insurance. Well, great. If we plan that you're going to have that mortgage paid off into retirement, $2,000 goes away, but you still have $500 that we have to account for. So thinking about that as we're moving in. So another example we could look at would be a car payment. So Micah,
That's
let's
right.
chat about that and see what's the difference between a house and a car into retirement.
Yeah, one of the things we always recommend with our clients is to always have a car payment. Now, what we're not saying always have loans. That's not what we were saying whatsoever. We're saying is you get used to making a car payment, right? Let's say that you have a car payment of $600 a month and you pay the car off. Fantastic. Everybody loves paying that car off. That payment goes away. You quit spending the money on the car payment. Well, what happens? What do you do with that money? You spend it somewhere else, right? The money's still in your checking account. And so now you've increased your lifestyle by that $600 a month. What sounds great, 4 years, 5 years, however long goes by, now you need a new car. Well, where's that going to come from? Okay, you're going to go finance it. Fantastic. You go finance it. Now you have a $700 a month car payment because now cars cost more and interest rates are higher. So now you have a $700 a month car payment. Where does that come from? Well, you have the same income you had 4 or 5 years ago, hasn't dramatically changed and gone up that much. And so now this hurts cash flow wise. Now it's painful that we have to reduce our lifestyle and I have $700 less a month in income coming in order to make that car payment. So one of the things, Christian, as you know, that we really like to do is keep the car payment going. If we're making a $600 car payment, you pay the the loan off. Fan-friggin-tastic. I love it. Let's take $600 a month and divert it to a car savings account, and let's put $600 a month in a car savings account. Now, that's $7,200 a year that you're putting in this account, which is fantastic. That can help with maintenance. That can help with repairs. That can help with these other expenses that come up. That doesn't mean you have to save that money only for the purchase of a new car, but really what we've done is we've saved that cash flow. That's the most important thing. Now, when you need a new car, you have a pot of money to get that new car, whether we're going to use that money for a down payment because maybe there's 20 grand in that account, or maybe we need to finance it. Well, I don't know if I'm used to paying $600 a month because that's automatically going to savings. Now I got to pay $700. Okay, well, that's not too bad, right? That's only $100 more a month. That's a lot more manageable from going from $0 to $700 a month in that car payment. So this is why cash flow is so, so important in retirement. And we have this misconception about, oh, when I retire, I'll buy my last car. And I jokingly say about my grandmother, she passed away a few years ago, but when she retired, she told my dad, she's like, Floyd, this is my last car. I'm going to buy a new car. I've never had a new car. This is my last one. And my dad, financial advisor for many years, says, Mom, this isn't your last car. She's like, damn it, Floyd, I know what I'm doing. This is my last car. And after my grandma, but by the time my grandma had passed, Christian, she had bought 4 last new cars, right? Every single one was my last new car until the next last new car, etc. So these things just happen, right? We live longer. We want to have that mobility. You know what? Especially as we're getting older, I'm a huge fan of younger drivers and older drivers having newer cars with all of the safety features.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You want to talk about some amazing things that can happen. You have a seizure going down a car, driving down the road. Now you're incapacitated. That's there. Now they have cars that can automatically brake, that can detect the lanes, that can keep you inside of there, right? They can figure out. Now some of the cars, it's really creepy. They're watching you, and if you're not paying attention, they'll automatically start slowing the car down. So if you passed out, okay, you have lane coordinators who can keep you inside the lane. Now the car's automatically going to start slowing down and stopping you because it detects that you're not paying attention to the road. So
Yeah.
still look a little creepy that a camera's watching you the entire time. All right, that's a little uncomfortable. But from the safety side, that could be a fantastic thing to protect people. So we really got to think about these last new cars. In cash flow, you're always going to have those payments.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about all these cool technologies that are continuously improving and how that can be quite appealing as we are moving into retirement, that maybe we do want to get a new one and keep thinking that we'll continue to make those payments even when we pay that car off. I love it.
Yeah. So this again goes back to cash flow, right? Cash flow is the heartbeat of retirement. My clients that have transitioned into a really comfortable retirement are living on retirement dollars 1 to 2 years in advance. We know how much they're going to be spending. We know how much it's going to be coming in. We have forecast in living on in advance what that income is like. And Christian, I'm sure you've run into this as well, but I've run into several clients that over my years in doing this, over 2 decades actually in doing this now, I've been running into clients that are like, Micah, I know how much I spend. It is $7,200 a month. That's how much I'm going to spend now. That's how much I'm going to spend in retirement. All these things. I don't need to do your silly exercise about living on this in advance. I'm like, I know it's silly, but at least appease me. Let's go ahead and do it. And then we start living on it. We find out they're not actually living on $7,200 a month. They're living on 75. They're living on 8 because they were looking at just the month-to-month expenses. They weren't looking at those other things that tend to come up. And there's always other things that come up. This is why cash flow is so important.
100% agree. Now, before we transition, one of the things that I was thinking about too is we gave the example of, let's say, someone who is roughly, 5 to 10 years out from retirement. What about for our listeners who are maybe in their 30s, maybe they're in their 40s, and they've got a few more decades until they retire? How should they be looking at cash flow?
Well, speaking of our listeners, Christian, now that you brought that up, which is fantastic, we are coming out with a listener survey. It's our first annual listener survey that we're sending out. If you're not on our email list, you're not going to get this, so we really would appreciate. Jump on our website, planyourfederalretirement.com. Make sure you're on our newsletter. We send out great information with that, but we're also sending out the listener survey so we can find out more. What are your questions? What are your concerns? We want to create this content to benefit you, and the way that we get that is not just by us meeting with federal employees and thinking we know what we should talk about, but direct questions from you guys. We love answering your questions, so make sure you jump on and submit those. All right. So, Christian, back to your question, which is, what about our younger clients, right? How should they be saving for retirement? And we really need to start with the end in mind. This can be a little bit challenging. We're in our 30s. Like, what does retirement really mean, right?
Right.
That's so far off. Sometimes it's hard to visualize that. So I like to change the words a little bit and saying, you know what? I don't want to plan on retirement. I just want to know, when do you want to be financially independent? What age do you want to have the choice whether you continue to work or not? And I know this seems like a little bit of a semantic, but it really is a different question to that younger generation, younger clients, because when we think about retiring, it's so hard. I mean, even in my mind, I do retirement planning all the time. I cannot think about my own retirement. I love what I do. I love giving back. I love working with people. That's not something that I'm envisioning. I'm still saving for financial independence. I'm still saving for future things, but that retirement just doesn't resonate with me yet. And so we change it to financial independence. What age do you want to be financially independent? And then I love to back into these numbers. Now, one of the mistakes that I think younger clients can make is they can get too wrapped up in projections. That I know after doing this for a little while is that the more projections that you run, the longer out you go, the more scenarios we have that are still not going to be true, right? There's these Monte Carlo scenarios that can be run.
Yeah, I was thinking
and
about
the Monte
that.
Carlo scenarios, right? And Christian, you know this, right? We kind of joke about it in-house is we say, look, there's 2 different scenarios that run. One is you're broke, and the other one is you're Warren Buffett, and somewhere in between will be the reality. Yes. But how do you plan for that, right? I mean, that's such a wide gap. So let's start with the end in mind. What age do you want to be financially independent? And then how much money are you spending today? Why do we start with that? Because it's something we know. We can now take action on that. Then we just need to back into it a little bit. It says, great, how much do you need to save every single year so that by X age, or at least a range, maybe it's between 55 and 60. Great, come up with a range. What range do you want to be financially independent? How much do you need to save each year to make sure you're on track with that? And I really like the aspect of Christian, I'm on a bit of a rant. I'm going to ask you a question in a second. But I really like the aspect of having clients save a dollar amount because it's something they can control. If we come out and say, hey, look, you need to get 12% every year in the stock market in order to make sure you're successful for retirement. Holy crap. Well, now I can't control that. Sure, I can control my investments, but no one knows what the stock market's going to do every single year. It feels like we're a little bit more powerless with that. Versus if we flip it around, we say, hey, look, you need to max fund a TSP, you need to fund a Roth account, you need to do these things, and odds are you're going to be on track to be financially independent. Okay, this is something we can do. This is something we can control. Christian, when you're working with clients like that, what's kind of their feedback? What's their response?
I would agree in that scenario that you just said. We can't control what the markets are, so let's focus on what we can. How much are you saving, or how much are you putting away right now? And we'll start there. And going back to cash flow, I don't want to get into the 72 different line item budget sheet with them, but just trying to figure out ways that we can increase how much we're currently doing, and always just encouraging that we're saving more and putting more away. And then having the conversation, well, does this need to be pre-tax? Does this need to be Roth? That's going to be a different conversation. The other thing I would add is tying back to the whole topic today is with these increases we're getting in pay, start thinking about that. Don't think about where are these dollars going to get spent, but thinking about where are these dollars going to get saved. That would be one of the things I really want our listeners to be thinking about today.
Now, also, let's say our listeners in retirement mode, right? Well, fantastic. You got a huge bump up in your first pension. You got a huge bump up in your Social Security, which is great because your TSP probably didn't do too fantastic last year, right? So it's nice to have these other fixed incomes with a nice little bump increase. We love that. One of the things that we're going to work with our clients on is the same concept of our 50-50 rule. Allow 50% to come to the bottom line. I think it's fantastic. Increased lifestyle. Inflation's definitely there, right? Our retirees are feeling it. But the other 50%, let's put that in a project account. Let's put that in a travel account. Let's be intentional about this money instead of it just being kind of washed away. Because if we're not intentional, it hits the checking account and we're just going to blow it and spend it. And that is an option. Another option is let's be hyper intentional. What are those projects you want to do around the house? Where's the places you want to go? What's the experiences that you want to have in your life? Maybe with your kids or your grandkids, right? Especially after COVID, I'm seeing a lot of grandparents saying, hey, I want experiences with my grandkids and I want to plan these trips and I want to do these things and I want to make these memories. Well, that's awesome. Well, let's be intentional about that. Maybe we create a separate account and put 50% of that pay raise right in that separate account to create those experiences for you.
I love it. I love it.
Fantastic. Well, Christian, this is all about action items, right? We want to reach the federal employee audience. We want to get this information out, which is fantastic. We also want to come through with some action items, which are going to be really, really important. So, Christian, I'm going to kick it off to you. What's the first action item our listeners should look at this week to help improve their financial situation?
Yeah, take a look at the cash flow and figuring out what is coming in the door every month, right? Write that down. If you're dual income, right, figuring out what the other spouse is making as well. So have that top of the line, okay, how much is coming in? And then go back to where you were spending in the last 3 months or so. Usually in the November, December timeframe, we really see a lot more spending due to Christmas and all of that, or just holiday spending for gifts and whatnot. That's fine. But go back over the last 3 months, 6 months or so, and really get a good gauge on how much are we spending and how much is actually going out the door every month. Coming up with the cash flow plan is going to be super important, and the first one that I would really be thinking about as an action item.
Christian, that's fantastic. I know we've done podcasts about it before. We call it the buckets, right, in our cash flow planning. You can have a couple of different expenses, like to break those out. There's, household, travel, entertainment, medical, maybe another miscellaneous one, but no more than 5 general categories of spending looking at that cash flow plan. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm going to say our second action item for our listeners is it's time to review your estate planning. Yes, I know that's not what we talked about today, but you just got back from relatives probably with Christmas or the New Year. That means you might want to make some changes in your estate planning. We hear this from clients at least every year. I just spent the time with the family. I need to make some changes in my documents. Well, great. Now is the time to do it. Pull those documents out. Maybe you don't know what those changes are just yet, but now you need to make changes. Physically pull those documents out, stick them on the dining room table, and they cannot leave the dining room table until you update those documents. We need that physical reminder that's there. Or maybe you just need to pull them out and read them, because what you think you said in there is not actually what you said in there. Mm-hmm. And it might be really good to make sure you, and if you're married as well, your spouse is on the same page. All right, Christian, any other action items for our listeners?
Going back to what we said with that cost of living adjustments, go ahead and increase how much you're saving. increase how much you're spending, right? That 50-50 rule, let's actually take action
Love it.
on that and move forward on that.
Fantastic. All right. And the only other plug that we're going to give, come on, you made it this far. Share this information out there with the audience would be fantastic. We are, again, we have an ambitious goal. We want to change the lives of over 1 million federal employees by helping them plan for retirement. And we can't do that without your help. Till next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.